I got me the tiz. My tiz sure is acting up today. Hi, I'm Dan. You found Therapy Woodworks, the funky little woodworking studio where we have a lot of fun and sometimes learn stuff about woodworking. Well, lately we haven't had a lot of fun. Well, I shouldn't say that. There's always fun in life. But there's been a little bit of not fun stuff mixed in with it. My body has decided to kick me in the nards, to be quite frankly. I've developed an autoimmune disease, polymyalgia rheumatica. What it is what the old folks used to call rheumatism, or the tiz. A little bit about polymyalgia rheumatica. It starts in your shoulders and gives you significant pain in your shoulders. And it moves to your hips and then your knees, and basically it kind of moves all over your body. And every day is a little bit different. There were nights when I was trying to sleep on the chair for half an hour at a time with my arms all propped up and the chair at just the particular right angle. It was very difficult to get through my paramedic shifts on night shift. It took 6 months for the doctors to diagnose. Well, I shouldn't say the doctors. I self-diagnosed and brought the information to the doctors, who were very apologetic, because this is not a disease that typically affects young men. And I use the term loosely because I'm not exactly a young man, but I'm still in my late 50s. This autoimmune disease typically affects females in their 70s. So it was a difficult diagnosis for me to actually have it. So once we figured it out, we got on a course of medication, and it has controlled the disease somewhat. The unfortunate part is that the medication is pretty kick-ass, and I can't stay on it forever. It does create some pretty significant side effects. I now have the beaties. Yep, diabetes, because my pancreas is shutting down. What that means is that I just got to watch my sugars and watch my diet intake and watch my carbohydrates. No more mixers. Rye on the rocks is still a pretty good option. And the other thing it gives me is handshakes, unfortunately. It is interfering with my paramedic career somewhat. You try sticking an IV needle in a patient with shaky hands. Doesn't exactly instill confidence. But that's life, and I'm soldiering on. As I age, I know I'm not going to be able to lift and be as mobile as I have been. So I've developed a few things in my life, things such as, instead of chopping wood now with a big 12-pound maul, I use a wood splitter. One of the things that I have been dead against, as anybody who's been watching my channel knows, is that I don't like using track saws and chasing plywood around the floor, because it just hurts my knees that are also all worn out, and my back, which is also all worn out. So I do a lot of my work of breaking down sheet goods on my table saw. That's why I invested in a slider table. Well, it's getting a little bit too difficult now to lift the plywood onto the slider table. So I've had to come up with another alternative. Now, I've got a project upcoming. It is the final project in the series of projects to deal with our renovation. Oh, the renovation. There's a video, I'll put it up here somewhere, that I've put up now that goes through some of the stages and phases of our renovation and just gives us a general overview of it. Have a look at it. You might find it quite interesting. The last part of the project is creating a bar in the dining room, my liquor cabinet bar. One of the things that I have to do is hump around a few sheets of plywood, primarily because I'm going to be creating some resin forms. Yep, I'm joining the ranks of the resin regalia. I'm not a huge fan. I don't really believe it's woodworking, but I'm going to give it a whirl because I kind of like how some of that stuff looks. Here's a sneak peek. Ooh, live edge walnut. One of the first things I have to do is cut up some plywood. And I'm not going to be able to lift the plywood onto my table saw anymore. So I've come up with an idea. Now, I don't have enough room in my 18 by 17 shop to be chasing plywood around on the floor. I looked at some of the options online that some of the other folks on YouTube use. And I come up with this handy grid system, which uses 1x3s on edge and uses these little Veritas support dogs, which mount in the top of it and elevate the sheet goods off of the bench of the table. And from here, I can use a track saw or whatever it means that I use to cut up the sheet goods. Now, I've been looking at a few different types of equipment here, and I've invested in a couple that were available at my local wood store. I've got a Kreg edge guide, I've got a Kreg rip cut system, and I also have the Kreg track saw track. Now, when we talk about brands, I did a lot of research, like I typically do, like anybody does. I was kind of really interested in the Festool track saw system. It looks top-notch, high quality, but it's just not in my budget right now. So I looked at some of the Kreg options, and they were relatively inexpensive and comparatively cheaper. I'm probably going to save myself $500 by using that system. So that's the system that I decided to go with, and the reviews online are fairly good. It's not a Festool, but it comes pretty close, and that's acceptable for me. It's not as if I'm going to be cutting sheet goods every day. I don't make cabinets that often. So when I do, maybe 2 or 3 times a year, I'm sure the Kreg track saw system will work just fine. One of the other issues that I've got is that I'm not going to be able to lift the plywood onto this grid system on the table. So I created this little piece, which is the point of this whole video. I created this little gadget here, which mounts into the ends of one of the grid system's boards and will give me a leg up. Leg up. Now, basically how it works is that it's going to pivot on the end of the board, and it will allow me to balance the 4x8 sheet of whatever I got, and it will actually, through mechanical leverage, lift the piece onto my grid system. I couldn't find anything online that was similar to this, so I built one in true woodworkers fashion. Okay, so as you can see, this is a fairly easy piece to build. If you want the exact dimensions, I will create a file for you and put the exact dimensions, but each one is going to be specific to the height of your bench top. Being an outfeed table, mine is the exact height as the table saw, so it's going to be pretty similar. To actually use this, mount the device is pretty simple. Just use one of my rails, and I slide it out. Now I have to put these little shims underneath, because my bench has this cutout because the dogs aren't that far back. So I put a couple of little shims underneath here. I put that in there. Line up the 2 3/4 inch holes and put this piece of doweling in, which turns very simply because I waxed the dowel. And that's it. It's pretty quick, simple, and easy to attach, and functions very well. Another tool I invested in is the Kreg KMA 3000 panel carrier. This handy gadget will allow me to transport 4x8 sheets of plywood with relative ease, even in icy conditions. I will leave the links in the description section for this video to all the tools that I have mentioned in the video. It's a good thing Rex was on standby with me. At least I have someone to lick my face in case I took a tumble on the ice and broke a hip or something. With the 4x8 sheet of 3/4 inch plywood in the shop, it's time to give my creation an initial trial. Here we go. Let's try this out, pupper buddy. Oh! We smoothly come into the shop. Place it onto the lifter. Oh my, that worked pretty slick. Wow, awesome. Let me pick my nose. Wet me whistle. Ah. Earwax. Polychromatic new... No, not that. Like a used car salesman. Whew. What a chore. Hey, big fella. Oh, that's not gonna work. Ouch. Damn it. Where's the dog's bed? Oh, that's better.